by all means, we can.
I want to actually open with because we dealt with religion. I was gonna open with one of the prayers, if that's permitted.
Say that again. You cut out a little bit.
Yeah, I said since we were dealing with religion last time, I was thinking about one of the universal Negro rituals.
Okay, that's perfectly fine. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sir, ma'am. Yeah. Well, everyone can, bow their heads or whatever. Direct us, O Lord, in all our doings, with thy most gracious favor, and further us with thy continued help, that in all our works begun, continued, and ended in thee, we may glorify thy holy name, and finally, by thy mercy, obtain everlasting life. Amen. Right.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. I heard you, but not like very, very loud. I don't know if that was just me and my phone, but hopefully throughout the session, I'll be hearing you a little bit louder. But I heard it. It just wasn't, as loud as it could have been. And thank you so much for that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I'll work on it.
Much better, much better. Yes. So, does anyone have anything to add? Any questions, comments, concern regarding last week's study on religion that kind of focused on religion and how Garvey looked at religion, and in terms of focusing on what was important and not get all caught up in religion. Anybody has any quick question, comment, concern before we move into history?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd just say quickly that Mr. Garvey thought it quite important that our spiritual needs be met, and that he established in building the association a chaplain general that will correspond with local division chaplains and pass on a weekly spiritual message to the members of the association. I know we constantly quote Mr. Garvey's "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery," but he also taught us to emancipate ourselves from spiritual slavery, because none but ourselves can free our souls, as well as financial slavery. None but ourselves can free our pockets. Anyway, spirituality has always been important, and I think it's something that if we were to embrace that same concept today, the UNIA would be far larger than it was. Over the years, some elements of the association developed somewhat of an anti-church, religion, maybe even spirituality philosophy. And when you have a certain attitude toward the church, which is one of the biggest institutions in the country and in the world, you're not going to attract certain people to the philosophy and the program, and therefore, we won't be able to accomplish the things we did on the level we once did, with that particular attitude. So sometimes it's important to reflect on what worked. When it's times of emergency, you don't engage in experimentalism and adventurism. When you want something tried, tested, and true, you got to use what will work. And Garveyism, unadulterated Garveyism, I should say, has always worked and, still will work as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And what I get is, we still have to emancipate ourselves, not just economically, but spiritually as well. From and in both regards, it's mental slavery. So that will affect our thought process, and it will affect our pockets. Thank you for that, Brother Mariama. Does anyone else have anything else to add?
This is a question on religion. Uh, when we went through the questions, did we go through all the questions from the chapter? So I just
I
didn't
think
remember.
we got close to the end.
Okay.
So, and it was only maybe a few more. So what I was gonna do, just for the sake of time, is to just jump into history. And when we do the review, um, I think this was the second time. We had another one that we had maybe like a couple more questions. I figure I'll just throw them in, so that there'll be a couple questions you hadn't seen when we do the review.
Okay, understand.
So what we're attempting to do tonight is use the first hour to go through all the history questions. It had a lot in there, but it's a very short chapter. Short but packed. And so as far as little concepts, So the idea is to go through that chapter and then jump into the chapter on the USA versus Marcus Garvey. Yes. Anyone else? Okay. If not, with no further ado, we can go ahead and start reviewing the questions from the history chapter. Brother John, you can go ahead and put those up. If you have them, you should.
Yeah, I'm here. 1 second.
Okay.
Technical issues. 1 second.
Want me to send them again?
Okay, I'm ready now.
A real blackboard. All right. Okay. So, history is the chapter, and the first question says, according to Garvey, whose work should Black people who do not know about their ancestry study? And depending on if you had the actual textbook or the download, the page may be different, but it was in the book on page 82. Anyone?
Works by Black historians.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It was a little specific about who he mentioned initially, one and then a few more.
Particular author.
Actually, not the
Oh,
author. Oh, no, the author was talking about Garvey and who Garvey recommend that people of African descent study if they were not too keen or too versed on our ancestry.
Okay.
Okay, so anyone else want to take a guess?
Only guess, I feel like it's a bad guess, but Schomburg comes to mind, but I feel like he probably was after Garvey.
Well, he was one, actually.
Okay, Schomburg.
He was one. Okay. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Sure, J.A. Rogers might have been in the mix. One of his favorite reporters, but I don't think he would have said Woodson if he called out names. But yeah.
Rogers was actually on the list. So
Yeah,
you got one as well. You got one as well. Okay. If no one else wants to guess, we can look at the full list.
I think Blyden would have been on there, but because I think he was
Yep,
on the case.
that is true. Blyden
Yeah.
is one. In fact, Blyden was the first one that he mentioned.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, certain people like Blyden. I think Alexander Crummell and others. He had they were part of the UNIA catechism. So
Mhm.
you know, when the UNIA would ask certain things, what does the red, black, and green stand for? What is who are these personalities like Blyden, Crummell, and others? Yeah, he would point certain names out, select historians.
Yes. Okay, so Brother John, if you will, we can take a look at the answers, which includes your answer as well as Brother Mary Amar's. Well, that's like the list isn't coming up yet, but this Blyden was the first person he pointed to. So that is correct. Blyden was the first person, but the list also include the other historical figures that um, that Brother John mentioned and that you had mentioned earlier, which were Schonberg and J.A. Rogers. But the next question says, what kind of credit did Garvey give to Blyden? Because Blyden was like the first person that Tony Martin pointed to that Garvey would recommend. So if anyone want to guess why you picked Blyden, we could look at that. If not, I mean, you could, yeah. Anyone can take a guess at why Blyden was selected. Guess at it, we'll look at the answer. So he acknowledged Blyden as one of our historian and chronicler, who did a lot to retrieve the lost prestige of the race and to undo the anyway, part of my thing is covered, but anyway, to basically undo the I guess propaganda of alien historian, and their history had little and painted black people unfairly. Had little to do with real history, and then it also they just didn't have a lot because they try to make it seem like so little of history was attributed to us, and basically we were in the Americas before the ones who enslaved us in the Americans. We were in the Americans before the so-called Native Americans, before the entourage of human traffickers were taken here. The human traffickers take the rest of us here and call us slaves, and we were never slaves. That's what they called us, but we never consider ourselves slaves. But that's a whole other tangent. But yeah, so white historians would paint a history to fit their narrative, to justify their atrocities and all that stuff. But so yeah. So I think the other question is gonna be the one that has all the names, and it asks, who were some early contacts that helped to reinforce Garvey's knowledge and appreciation for the history of his race? And in the previous question, some of the individuals were pointed to, which is Schonberg and J.A. Rogers and Blyden. And there were a couple more, if anyone want to take a shot. If not, we can take a look at all of them.
Did you mention Cromell? Alexander Cromell?
Cromell wasn't on this list. Not
Okay.
to say he's not one, but he wasn't on this list. I think they're talking about maybe like the early
Influence.
right, the early influence that set the stage for who he became and his interest in history and stuff like that. And who he studied to learn about certain injustice and things. Huh?
J. Robert Love? J. Robert Love?
I remember coming across him in our earlier readings, but he's not on this list for some reason.
About J.E. Casey Hafer?
Well, who? J.E.? Let's look at the list, because some of the names you're mentioning, I've come across them, but and although they were influenced, I think they're probably referring to like a certain period when he was coming into, you know, his understanding and his appreciation of history and how to use history to further his cause. I think that's kind of what they're alluding to. Not to say that these other individuals, aren't of some significance. So if no one else wants to guess, we can just take a look at that list. And so Rogers is on the list, Schomburg is on the list. And of course, we looked at Blyden earlier, and some additional folks are Ducey Muhammad Ali, William H. Ferris, and John Edward Bruce. Okay, and all of this was used within the organization, within all the studies on history, amongst many other materials and many other, famous and instrumental artists. So if no one else has anything else to add, we can take a look at question number 4. And it says, how did Garvey use history? Garvey had a technique for everything. He used politics a certain way. He used history a certain way. He used religion a certain way. So he was unique in his style. And I guess not really unique. He was consistent in his style, because everything that he used, he found a way to gear it towards the furtherance of his race. That's what was great. That's why he came up with so many business and did so many things, because he's not lamenting on the injustice. He knows it's the injustice, and he was fighting it. He was fighting the injustice, just like he was fighting propaganda with propaganda. And we saw that it worked, because look at the following that he amassed. So, but anyway, anyone wants to take a guess at how he used history? Which I kind of alluded to.
His one of his quotes that I like was, "We can learn from the past, but we can't live in the past." So, I would
Right. Ex-
certain lessons about
Exactly.
what we
Yes, absolutely. Yes, that is right. And I think there was another quote that he made too, which I'm not exact on, but it's something along the line that we have today
uh,
and we have tomorrow, but we don't have the past. You know,
mm,
he said something along those lines that he said too.
one of the first precepts in philosophy and opinions also has to do with history as a guidepost, by which we can, you know, measure our progress as a race, that kind of thing. So,
Yes,
may also be uh, accurate answer as well.
yes, absolutely. Yes. If no one wants to take a shot, we can look at the answers to question 4. And it says that Garvey used history for the furtherance of racial emancipation. He used history first to establish a grievance and then to show that the Black people have been wrong. And then he also used history in ways to instill self-confidence. So whatever the twist on history, he used it to emancipate the race, to, you know, for grievance, to show that injustice was done, that Black people were wrong and was still being wronged. And then he would use great historical figures and great historical past, ancient past. He'd go real far back into the Nile and the Nile civilization and all of that to instill self-confidence. So he was very effective in how he was using history.
I would add briefly to that too, that you mentioned the Nile. That I did an article some years ago on Marcus Garvey channeling my art, and I looked at some of the things like the ostrich feathers in his hat, which symbolize my art. You know, with the putting your heart on the scale and putting the feather on the other side,
Right,
but also
right.
his school of African philosophy. The original school that he had 42 lessons, as in the principles of my art. You know, he
Wow.
often
Yeah,
talked about myself, which was written in stone over the pyramids, etc. And so anyway, a lot of the comedic and
yeah.
mystery stuff, um, shows in some way, if he didn't know it um, exactly historically, he certainly was in some way channeling that spirit. When he communed with the
Mhm.
ancestors. So
Wow.
other things, dealing with the Adinkra.
That's amazing. That's an amazing observation because it showed that even though he was raised certain ways spiritually, and even though he used it as some kind of guide, not from a religious perspective, but more from just a supreme being type of perspective. But he was conscious of African philosophy, that, in being conscious of the 42 confessions of Mahat, him being him being accountable by saying that your heart has to be light as the feather and wearing that feather to represent that. She's very observant, but yeah, wow, I don't know how he got so smart, but he was. Hmm. But anyway, anyone else has anything to add? If not, we can look at question number 5. Okay, so it was asking which white historian acknowledged that that Africans had a former that African had in former times enjoyed a credible history. There weren't too many of them, but this one was kind of truthful in his reporting about what he knew about African history for the most part. And for the most part, he's the only white historian. I mean, there might be more, but he's the only white historian that people would point to, like John Henry Clark and these guys mentioned, like the gentleman that wrote the book They Came Before Columbus. He mentioned him a few times in his book. I mean, the book They Came Before Columbus. I'm trying to remember the author's name of that one, but anyway.
Ivan Van Sertima.
That's right, Ivan Van Sertima, exactly. So yeah, so that's the gist. But anyone want to guess his name? Want to remember his name? Okay, so if not, we could take a look. And so that historian is called Herodotus. Herodotus. Okay, and the next question says, how did Herodotus' era impacted his writing on Black history? How did it impact his writing so that his writings was more favorable than later historians? Or I'm not sure, maybe previous historians. No, it would be later based on how the question is. Anyone want to take a guess?
I would say Herodotus had a first-hand account because all of his accounts are first-hand. He actually witnessed who he was actually seeing at that particular time. I would advance that.
That is true. That is true. Thank you for that, Brother Orman. That is definitely true because he's not being told by somebody else, you know? He's an eyewitness firsthand. So yes, that would be, I would agree with that. Anyone else want to take a guess? Okay. So if no one else want to guess on this one, we could just go ahead and look at the answer. And it basically saying that in addition to the fact that he had first-hand experience, as Brother Ormond just pointed out, he actually belonged to an era that was less inclined to establish myth about Black inferiority. So while he was doing his thing as an historian, he wasn't influenced by the prejudicial stuff. He was just going with first-hand experience, and that's usually the best kind of experience. So if no one else has anything to add to that, we can look at question 7, which says, when African face allegations of inferiority, according to Garvey, what should they do when we face allegations of inferiority, when folks try to make us feel like we're less than, craziness like that? How should we handle that according to Garvey? Any guesses?
I would say manifest our superiority.
I would agree. That would be a way. That would be a way.
On one instance, he say, laugh them to scorn.
Right. That's good. Because you know better.
Yeah, they have no right to name any more inferiority than we do. After fundamentalism.
Yeah, it's all propaganda because history has proven that these people are no more superior. They're not even close to being superior. It's just they have superior weapons. That's where we've failed badly. Not protecting ourselves, being too nice and friendly to people when they come to our shores. But those are stories for other days.
Yeah,
And
he
a
al- he
testament
also,
and a testament to what we need to do going forward.
yeah, I was gonna say he also mentioned in philosophy, I think it was under Negro psychology philosophy too. He had pointed out that um, they claim that we are inferior, but their actions prove that they don't even believe that. Because if we were inferior, they wouldn't try
Right.
to do things deliberately to sabotage our progress. Anybody inferior is going to fail on their own.
Exactly.
Yes,
They don't even believe that nonsense.
Exactly.
yes.
Exactly. No one else could have withstood picking cotton in the sun. They would have all died from skin cancer,
Yeah,
even though
the myth of superiority was their greatest weapon. It's only a myth,
right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah,
and if you believe the myth, then you have a problem.
exactly. And unfortunately, some of
Many of
us
us do.
some of us did. So, but I mean everybody knows except us sometimes that there is just it's just nonsense.
Yes.
So if no one else has anything to add, we could take a look at the answer on page 33 of our book. It says that, and there's a few of them. Garvey says that the African had nothing to be ashamed of in the face of, part of mine is cut off, in the face of something,
Of allegation.
allegations of inferiority emerging from the white world. He said Black people should move from the defensive to aggressively really rehabilitating the past.
Right.
So don't defend it, And then he says, the time has come here for Black man to forget and cast behind him his hero worship and adoration of other races, and to
Start out.
I think it said start out immediately to create and emulate heroes of his own.
Right.
So in so doing, we must canonize our own saints, create our own martyrs, and elevate
Two positions.
the position of fame and honor Black men and women who have made the
There.
distinct
Yes.
the,
They're
con-
distinct.
contribution of our racial history. So that's how Garvey handled that. This is what you do. Don't defend what you know is, don't defend nonsense. If we all learn how to, and I'm not saying that it's an easy thing, but if we all learn just to recognize nonsense, especially when it comes to racial stuff, because these people are not superior in any way, shape, or form. They're just superior killers, liars, and thieves. They're superior in that regard. But if we just realize that all of it is hogwash and propaganda, and don't defend it and just focus on bringing back the glory, as Garvey put it, I mean, it would just make a huge difference.
True.
But yeah, so anyway, question 8 says, how did Garvey react to the distortions he observed emerging from the pages of white historians in his era? How did he react to the BS that he observed in books about Black people written by white historians?
He started creating his own heroes.
Okay. Yes. Telling our own narrative, right? Like with all the
Oh,
papers and
definitely.
stuff.
Yeah. African
Okay.
worldview.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else want to guess?
Now let's see what Mr. Garvey had to say.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's take a look then. We could take a look at that, Brother John. So he basically carried on a constant campaign against white historical writings on Black past. And so there were several times when he would, you know, the Negro World and many other publications would just counter a lot of the madness. And so he was, in a sense, and we're going to read the next chapter on propaganda. We're going to do the questions next week on that. But it, in a sense, shows you how he used that to counter the crazies. Okay. So if no one else has anything to add, we can look at question 9, which says that Garvey says history is written with prejudice when white historians write about Black history. And then the other part says, how are the white historians prejudicial in their writings according to Garvey? Anyone want to guess on this one?
It's a combination of ignorance and propaganda, white propaganda.
Right. Okay, I agree. Ignorance is definitely one, but I also think deliberate lies too,
Yes,
because they don't have a history, and
right.
then also thievery, because you know they have to what do you call it? They have to find a way to
Rationalize.
right rationalize to rationalize the injustice, the brutality, and what they were doing. And the only reason they picked us is number one, because they wanted to steal the strongest people on the planet. And number two, they want to rob the richest continent on the planet. And they
Plus,
were robbing.
we had the know-how. They didn't steal us willy-nilly. They
Exactly.
studied what we were doing over there, and they needed that over here in order to develop their
Exactly.
civilization for them, because they were very lazy and all they
Yes.
did was sit around in the pubs, and they were debaucherers. All they did is sat around and drank and fussed
Yes.
and fussed. And so they got people who knew how to build civilization to build one for them.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And then after they got rid of all those people, they created this tremendous mind job that was carried out from generation to generation. My goodness gracious, just imagine if we carry out our race first from generation to generation in half the way that they carry out their madness.
Well,
they have gone, and we will.
They've gone a little deeper than that now. They have enlisted us in our ingenuity,
right,
to further their desperate aims. And we go
right,
willingly into that good night.
right,
Bad night.
exactly.
Let's put it that way. Because when you look now and see how we're used, and a dying, desperate empire, we're used as almost like fodder and putting ourselves in place to accept the responsibility for the death of a world and a people, you know, because right now they're using us up front.
Absolutely. And we've seen it throughout history, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would just say they also use history. They painted with a white brush to still credit of great accomplishments like pyramids and other things, mathematics. You know, they pretend that they invented or developed that are stealing credit from us, as well as trying to make us think that they're our saviors rather than enslavers. So yeah, they use it brutally a lot of different ways.
Right. Exactly. Wow. That is so true. They flip the switch. You know, that's a good analogy. Like there are saviors, not our enslavers. And some people, you know, not just in Africa, but here, you know, because of how they keep the people deprived and throw them a little carrot every now and then and say they're giving them aid while they pillage their resources, you know. A truck come with some GMO stuff or low quality crap and people run to the truck like, you know, like they're the white savior. They have this white savior complex, and that's by design. So absolutely, they're still believing that these people are their saviors, not their enslavers, not that the truck is bringing, you know, vaccine to shorten their lives and make them sterile. They think it's gonna make them healthy. So we got a long way to go still, but a lot of folks are waking up, and credit is due there.
It's called the miseducation of the Negro. We've been miseducated.
Right.
And
That's part of
misprioritized.
these.
And misprioritized too. So we have a lot of confusion amongst ourselves and in ourselves that needs to be resolved also.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Brother Ormond. If no one else has anything to add, we can go ahead and look at the answer from the book. It says that Garvey said that the white historian and writers have tried to rob the black people, I think, of his proud past in history, as Brother Mariam and Brother Orman just pointed out. And then when anything new is discovered to support the racist claim and attest to the truthfulness of our greatness in other ages, it is skillfully rearranged and credited to some other unknown race or people, like the so-called Egyptians, for example. So, yeah. Okay, so if no one else has anything to add, we can take a look at question 10, which says that Garvey admitted that the black man had fallen behind in what regards? Anyone want to take a guess at that one?
And knowledge of self and pride and dignity of not even in technology, because whenever we're exposed to technology, we always supersede. But the desire to perfect ourselves, I would say, or to be ourselves and to regain our lost knowledge is falling behind in that. But I'm just conjecturing now.
I would say all of those are true, because even today, you know, when they talk about Africa, they have all the equipment for simplifying mining, but the people there don't have the equipment, or it's not, you know, proliferating in certain areas where they have their own mines. It's all run by foreign people, foreign company, with all the latest equipment to bore down into the earth and steal stuff. And then when you hear people refer to technology, they always talk in terms of, you know, bringing technology to Africa. And the irony the irony is that first technology was from that neck of the woods that they took and built upon to be where they're at today.
And you,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
you would be surprised to know that how much technological knowledge that they use came out of African minds from the continent and from
exactly.
here.
And in the diaspora, exactly.
Right. Because the major problems that need to be solved in this society were solved by African people, you know, because we were the ones doing the work. We were the ones who had the visions to be able to create the things that are now most people depend upon, you know. So our creativity runs deep and wide, and it's not accounted for in most cases, you know.
Like they said that the guy that made, you know, everybody credit Edison for light and stuff, but they said the person who made the filament to keep the bulb going was a black man, Latimer, I think his name was, you know, and many other things, you know, were created in our minds. And
you name it.
Yes.
From the toilet to air conditioning to shoes, you name it.
Yes. And we were forced, and the reason how we created that was because he was in the cotton field and he noticed that the carbon when the cotton was staying lit for a long time. So it was like what they call a carbon filament. So that's just how we ended up creating stuff, is because they say necessity is a mother of invention, and we were out there doing the task, and it's just human nature to find a better way to do things and an easier way. Unless you're insane, you're not going to be wanting to innovate and do things easier and better. And that's what we did. Because we had the original brains.
I would say our greatest contribution is civilizing these people, and which we still attempt to do, because without our progress in this country, the Europeans who live in this country and everybody, the American dream would not be realized. We're the foundation of the American dream, because we made it happen, you know, and still make it happen. And that's why they keep us in the position that we're in, because we're in the foundation position whereby everybody can benefit from our wealth. And because we don't use it, so everyone else comes and uses it for themselves to build themselves up. Yes, so we're very powerful.
And while they're exploiting, they're lying.
Yes.
And trying to not give us credit. That's just the epitome of ungratefulness. It's the same thing like when they suck us into war and we come back and they're supposed to free the people, and instead they do something else. It's just madness all over. But anyway, it's easy to go off on a tangent here. So it's so many things, you know, it's just craziness all over. But yeah, I think we're woken up a bit, a lot. We just still have a long way to go, that's all. And we have what we need, we just need the unity. We have all the stuff we need. And I was gonna talk about the guy that made the machine that makes water out of thin air. It just uses a condensation in the air to create good quality drinking water. And he's from the United States, but I think he was using it in the military. Some of you guys may have seen that, but how amazing is that?
Tremendous. It's a very tremendous.
Did you see that?
I saw a process that he was on. There is well, anyway, I don't have that information from me, so I'm not going to say it. But
yeah,
it was highlighted in one of those new invention programs.
Yeah.
All the different new concepts and ideas that have come forth, and his was highlighted. Matter of fact, he was at one of those programs about a year ago. Matter of fact, he might even be there this year. I forgot the name. I was given that flyer the other day. It's the name of a group. I'll think of it before we go off, and I'll put it up. But no, I can't remember it now.
The only thing I didn't like is, instead of being in Africa where they need water, he's like working in the military with that technology. But you know,
he's offered it to African countries also. He's offered it
Okay.
to everybody. I'm not everybody, but he's offered it to because it's a new form of it. But his biggest problem is the people who want to, because water is it's getting as expensive as gold. You know, water's become one of those commodities that if you don't have it, you'll be desperately poor.
Well, the biggest problem is the ones who want to sell water.
Well, water has become pricey because to find good, clean water is very difficult because of the pollution that happens on the planet Earth. So all of the best aquifers are usually taken to people who can afford it, you know. But there are good aquifers right in the area if you can find them and get your water. But they're working toward now that, you know, that these things will probably be outlawed in a little while because the rights to water is what they're fighting over now. And that's water wars will be the thing of the future. Matter of fact, it's a thing of the present. Water wars.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah,
Wow.
is this guy black or white?
He's a black guy.
Yeah, he's black.
Thank you.
Definitely black guy.
But you can make water comes out of here. I have a compressor which I run quite often. You get a lot of water out of a compressor when you. I don't know. I haven't tested it or anything like that. If push comes to shove, and you got electricity, you run a compressor, you get a certain amount of water out of it. But which is another way of extracting water out of air. That's the reason why when you use your compressor, you got to bleed it, which means after you finish, you open it up and let the air blow out the water. Otherwise, you'll rust out your container.
Rust it out. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So,
did we answer the question about what did Garvey say?
Yeah, we were on the one about falling behind in what regards.
Yes.
So let's see the answer to that one. Brother John. So, okay, it says that the black man has fallen behind in the preceding.
Oh, march toward material.
In the preceding few hundred years, right, towards material progress. That's because we keep sending away raw material. You see, I always take it back to the continent, but but anyway, it's true though. Yeah.
Well, there was a plan to keep us out. Well, we were fighting against a plan that was keeping us out because at one point we were the skilled laborers in America, and Europeans realized that, so they went to Europe and brought in tradesmen to teach and film unions, which locked us out once they were trained, and so that skills were taken away from us, which put us at a disadvantage.
Right, and they took it out of the schools so the young kids can't learn it.
True.
True. But they took out what we call the skills that pay the bills. They actually took those out of certain schools.
Yes, right. It's true. Not like that.
And
but
why aren't those things in jail where they're supposed to be reforming? They don't want to reform anybody in jail. They want to keep their prison industrial complex feeding them. That's just an arm of being fed on our backs. Another form of slavery.
Yeah, those basic skills, everyone needs them. In order to be a man, you should be able to use your hands. You should be able to fix basic things, and you should have knowledge of your environment. Grow. You should be able to grow. But see, these skills they don't teach you in school. They teach. It's not about education. It's about indoctrination and putting in information that it's useful for them because you come out and you don't know anything, and then you're ready to get a job, right? And flip burgers or whatever. Go ahead, excuse me.
No worries. I watched a video on Norway, and Norway, even the prisoners, they have jobs while they're in prison and they're paid, and the whole idea is to make them, ready for the workforce when they get out and not treat them like criminals. Imagine that.
Well, they do that. They do that in the prison system here, but when the brothers come out, they can't use the skills that they learned when they were in prison. They won't hire them on that. because they ask, have you ever been in prison or are you a felon? And if you respond to that, whatever you learn in prison, you're not going to be able to apply it. So a lot of brothers are doing, that's why you see brothers in businesses or you can call them what you will, trades that, that are non-unionized, but they're in the community and a lot learned by trial and error or from what they can pick up or pass down from a family member, a grandfather or a parent who has these skills. But that's the way we survive. How we survive like that,
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
This march towards material progress, I see that as the Europeans' war against the African beginning in 1885 and the division of Africa, which there's a professor, a Black professor, who says that Berlin Conference in 1885 concluded that was the First World War.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, when the Europeans fell on the Africans. So it wasn't in 1914 and the Europeans fighting amongst themselves. That was the
Yes,
Second World War.
that was, yes, the
Yeah, the
First
First
World War.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the material gains that they set up on Africa, particularly just one example was the Congo and the Belgian leader there, and
King Leopold.
yes,
Mm,
the second,
yes,
I believe, and the how many million people in the Congo were killed and
20 million. And they said it's probably more than that.
yeah.
They don't give you the full number, but they say it's at least 20 million people for rubber. What kind of mentality for rubber? You're going to massacre all these people.
Yes, so that was the First World War, and we need to not use the Europeans' terminology,
Mm-hmm.
such as we were slaves. No, we were prisoners of war, and we have been at war. That's Dr. Clark, John Henry Clark, that said that we have been at war for over 5,000 years. And just part of the war that we never talk about is the war with the African against the Arabs. We never
Yes,
talk about the Arabs' war against the Africans. So
yes,
have been in continuous war, and the Europeans who learned their chapter of the war against the Africans from the Arabs,
yes,
that we're still suffering from today. So
yes.
it's one of the,
Absolutely,
that's what
Brother
I
Emma.
see in this march towards
Yes.
material progress.
Mm-hmm. That is so true, Brother Emotep. Thank you for that. Yeah, so the Arabs were, one of the first people to invade the continent. And then, of course, they're still being used by their cousins in Europe to disrupt the peace in certain areas so they can continue to pillage the resources. But yeah, I mean, they talk about the Holocaust with Hitler, and not that doesn't have any weight, but you're talking about 6 million people. Not that that isn't a light number, but when you compare to 20 million in the Congo, and you hardly hear anything about that, and then now look what they're doing to the Palestinians. So it's just hypocrisy everywhere and madness everywhere. And anyway, it's but you're right. The First World War was when the Europeans sat around at their table with not one African present and carve up the continent like a piece of cake, and it's still impacting what's going on the continent today. still impacting the continent, and it looks like they're gonna have to do what Triore is doing, but they need to join forces quicker. You know, they need to join forces, more countries coming together, not one and two. It'll take forever. And you know, the neocolonialism is alive and well, and if we don't do like what's going on in, you know, Burkina Faso and Niger and all these places, we're in trouble. So, but anyway, this stuff is so deep that we could go off on a tangent. So let's try to stay focused. So the next question uh, is ask, what ultimate goal did Garvey said was inevitable, and how will it be achieved? Anyone want to take a guess?
The resurgence of the black man.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Brother Art. Thank you. Anyone else want to add anything? Okay. If not, we can take a look at that. Yes, spot on. The resurgence of the black race, and he added that in the cycle of things, he lost his position, but the same cycle will take him back to where he once was.
That's right.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, so if no one else has anything to add, we can take a look at number 12. And number 12 says, what are the only two things, according to Garvey, that can stop black women and black men and black women? Only two things. Anyone? If no one wants to guess, we can take a look at that one as well. So again, Garvey's full of optimism, and he's right. He says, we are bound to win. Nothing can stop us but death and ourselves. So the whole idea is that success is inevitable, provided that the black man did not become complacent. And you see how we got out of, you know, slavery. We didn't have any horses or any acres, any mules or any acres. Then we built all the Black Wall Streets, and then they destroyed them, and we built again. And then integration happened, and we got complacent. So complacency is not our friend, and the illusion of inclusion and all that stuff. But anyway, so he says, if we don't become complacent and we don't cease to engage in the constant struggle, based on the program, we can go back to where we once were.
Yeah, I wonder, just quick, I guess add to that a little bit. Mr. Garvey was fierce in stating that our greatest enemy wasn't another race, and it wasn't even our race; it was the disorganization of our race.
That's
and
right.
that if you organize, we
Yeah.
can do anything. And that's an important concept. If you really believe you are the equal, if not better than any other race on the planet, then you can't say that, you know, they won't let us have this, they won't let us do this.
Right.
Because then that means they're superior and there's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
So
It's like you're relinquishing. It's like you're relinquishing to them.
Right.
Who cares
Yeah.
about what them? We gotta march ahead and do our stuff, as Garvey says. Absolutely, I
Yep.
agree.
Garvey
Yeah.
said, Garvey said, up you mighty people, you can accomplish what you will. The key word in there
Absolutely.
is will. When we
Yes.
will it, it shall be.
Yes. And mighty. We are mighty people, but we forgot. Yes. Mighty people.
But we
Made in
integrate.
the image of Black Jesus, Black God.
But we
Yes.
became complacent when we started integrating and trying to become a part of something that is not a part of us. There have been an
Right.
opportunist upon
Right.
our very existence. And but we now have taken over the wheels of that same opportunism on our own people by being bought off the materialism. I guess you could call that the material weakness that we
Right.
suffered
We're
for high position,
imitating our,
high salaries, and being nearness to our oppressor. And a lot of
yes.
us have fallen hook, line, and sinker for that, and created a class system which is in opposition to the struggle. So, and a good portion of the struggle will be against that class mindedness that has come into existence.
That is 100%. And I've worked in corporate America, and I've seen it, it's ridiculous. I mean, just imitate the madness that exists there. I've seen it. So yeah, that's a whole other story for other days. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to add, again, back to that like Mr. Garvey talked about in one of his most important writings was "Man Knows Thyself," and I think he did that in 1921. But when he wrote it, he was saying, "Oh, how disgusting life gets when you hear people who look like you on every turn saying I can't get a chance. The man won't let me, and this kind of stuff." But that to me, and the way Mr. Garvey described it, it's like playing basketball against another team who got just as many tall people, just as many skilled people as you, and losing because you're not communicating, because you're not, passing the ball, you're not doing what you're supposed to, but you want to blame them and you want to beg them to stop winning rather than you get yourself together and start winning yourself, because you got everything they have, but it's that attitude of, being enslaved for so long and being dependent and being, revering and these people is divine and otherwise gave us the wrong attitude so that we think, they're the problem rather than us getting ourselves together is the only problem. And once we do, we'll get this, white monkey off our back and stand up and start, like you say, flipping the script and reversing the curse, and we'll control the world economy because we got all the resources on the planet we need to accomplish anything we will. So, but it's just a matter of the right attitude, so that's important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about mindset. If we change our mindset, it's already laid out. I mean, we just have to unite and change our mindset, and not just unite here, but unite here and in the continent. Because life, some people talk about life as a game. Life is a game, and the people who know how to play the game win. But if we look at life in terms of a sports, and if we look at life in terms of a game, who are the king of sports? No matter where you go on the planet, the king of sports are Black people. We excel because we're physically superior, and we don't say it like we're trying to say we're better. It's just a natural genetic fact. It's not like we're saying, well, I'm physically superior, so I'm better than you. We don't do that, but we know it. It's a scientific fact. So here we are. Life is a game of sports. We are the physically superior people. We don't view life as a game. We need to view life as a game because we excel in games. We take it too seriously, and we're trying to fit in and get accepted, and we're adapting the ways of our oppressor, and we have the illusion of conclusion, the religious psychosis, and all of it is mental. But if we look at it as a sport, and we know that we are physically superior, and we just play a game and we unite, we already have all the resources. We can build whatever we want in terms of weaponry to protect ourselves. If we look at it like that, that's it. And we're not trying to go after anybody to get them back, because that's not what we're thinking. We just want to be left alone to thrive like everybody else. And we're not trying to suppress anybody, but that's what they seek, and that's their mentality. They feel you have to conquer or be conquered. And that's the mentality that they have operated by. So they're very scared because they know what they've done. So they're thinking, damn, if these people ever get on top, they're gonna do what we did to them to us. But we don't think that way. So, but we have this because it's a sport, it's a game, and we gotta we unite and change our mental attitude. That's it. I know it sounds easier said than done, but when you really think about it, what are they doing? They're playing games. They're using propaganda. They're lying about history. They're playing game, and they play the games dirty.
Well,
And
we have a great,
then when you throw in with all that, sorry, go ahead, Brother Horman.
we do have a great challenge in front of us, though. Even though they're playing games, our challenge is to return the earth back into its natural state of peace, harmony, love, and joy, and the divinity that and naturalness that the universe requires in order to function. We've been living in a dysfunctional world, and we have to make it. One of the purposes of us being here, as I said earlier, is to civilize the uncivilized. And we've done that, and we've lifted everyone in that process. But we also have to put balance back into nature, and the Creator needs this balance upon the planet Earth to harmonize with the balance that's in the universe. And that is our task, I believe, to once we get ourselves together and restore the harmony in the universe, then we would have reached back into our divine self, and we would be truly who we are supposed to be. The makers, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe.
You're absolutely right, because there's never going to be any balance when they're telling you that you can be whatever sex you want. I wouldn't be surprised if they start turning the animals in the zoo into gay. But
well, they have done that. They have experimented with that. But oh, they have. But that's what they're supposed to do, though. That's what they would divide. That's the nature of the beast, as we say.
Well, while that's going on, we're not gonna have balance because it's against nature.
Well, that's our challenge.
That's against nature. It's not gonna.
Well, that's our challenge. We have to. That will make us stronger when we overcome all of the games, as you say, and the challenges that we face. That's only making us, that's like tension. You go in the gym and you work out and you lift weights. It's the tension that we need. We are the coal that's being hammered into diamonds, but it takes a lot of pressure. And we're not happy unless we're under a lot of pressure. And we don't make moves until we're under a lot of pressure, because we know that we are, we know that we are. But we don't have the necessary unity to manifest who we are. So until we do that, we will always be in this position of subservience to that weaker mind that has been projected upon us. But once we clear our heads and clear our minds, and we return back to our natural way of being, then this nightmare that we have been living all of a sudden disappears.
It's all about dividing and conquering. It's all about this unity. That's why we see all this stuff going on in the continent, and they're just as mentally lost as us, because they went through a series of craziness as well.
Well, they seem to be clear. They seem to be pretty clear over there now. They're leading the world, Traore, and it's different Sahara groups that are forming. They're leading the world now. If we can accomplish some of what they have accomplished, as far as unity,
we have to give credit where credit is due.
True. And putting
Mm-hmm.
things back in perspective, for right now, they're dealing with those old colonial heads who are very
Mm-hmm.
pliant and who allow the continent to become like it is. And
And
that's
that's
the
part of the
hardest thing.
balance. That's part of the balance you talk about. That has to be fixed.
Well, that will be
We
fixed
can't
once
move forward with puppets. Never. They'll never look out for the best interest of the people.
yeah, well, of course, they're looking out for their own interests. But we're going to
Right.
have to, the people are going to have to realize that they pay a valuable price when we allow, even though these are elders in the community, but they have been materialized and they have been commercialized and they have been sold into a mindset that enslaves the people who are under them. But this new group of people are shaking all that off. And the older people are looking now and trying to figure out, because this is the year for all this stuff to happen. 2024
Yes.
will, by the time we get to 2025, there will be about a new world be happening. People will be much more awake
Yeah.
than they are now. So we're in the days of awakening and separation
Yeah.
and resurrection and all that good stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. It's exciting times and scary
Oh,
times
it
at the
is.
same
It's a
time.
wonderful time. They call
Yes.
it a great and dreadful time.
Yes. Yes, that's a great observation. Okay,
Oh,
so yeah, so let's look at the next question. And it's asked what was the name of Garvey's long poetic song and what did it depict?
hmm. Hmm.
Any guess? Any guesses?
Well, I said song, not poem.
I think they refer to it as a poetic song.
Well, no, well, his longest one was Tragedy, White Injustice, but
That would
the
be
first,
it. That would be
yeah,
it. That would be it.
oh, okay,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, and it depicted the history of this one white man in America and across the world and his brutality and lies, etc. Lying and cheating is the white man's game.
Yeah.
uh, Respect for man and foul, he has no shame, or something like that. I used to know the
Yeah.
Hmm.
first few of them, but
Wow.
yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to add anything?
No, but
Okay.
thank you for that information.
Yes. And thank you. And so, okay, so we could take a look at that. The answer to that. So Garvey's long poetic saga, The Tragedy of White Injustice, it recounted Africa glories at a time when Europe was steeped in barbarism, and it cataloged a history of European genocide and rapine. I'm not sure what rapine is. I should have looked it up. It postulated Black man's inevitable resumption of glory and held out the hope of, uh, anyway, of something. The white man should mend his evil ways soon, otherwise Armageddon would ensue, basically. And it encapsulates all the different things that Brother Mariama just pointed out. But I haven't read it. Maybe that's something we could read on one of our study. Is that like a little book or something, Brother Mariama?
Yeah, they do
Was it
have
not?
it in booklet form. It's quite a few pages, but it's like
Okay.
45 different stanzas, I think. But yeah, but it's definitely something that can be read. It kind of reminds
Okay.
me of the last poet in many ways. If you listen to it, hold on
Okay.
one second. Yeah, I'm sorry. Uh, but yeah, it's definitely something that can be read and discussed because it has, it's extremely well written. He wrote it when he was incarcerated,
Mhm.
and yeah, it reminds me of some of the last poets. When they talk about the white man has a God complex, or when they talk about how they stole our name and took our game and all this kind of stuff. But it talks about them and how they've genocidally handled other peoples of the world as well. So kind of like
Mhm.
Brother Orman was talking about, Mr. Garvey once defined African redemption. And that the redemption of Africa is a great commission, not only to recover Africa for the Africans, but to rescue the souls of Africa's sons and daughters from social, political, economic, and spiritual bondage, to restore us to a ground of vantage to secure the true uplift of our race and then the good of the entire human family. So it's a humanitarian vision,
Right.
something
Right,
that's about us, but like Brother Orman was saying, putting the whole planet back in order. So
right, exactly,
yeah, it was a grand
exactly.
vision. In fact, Mr. Garvey's vision was so powerful that even
Hmm.
his enemies said that his vision is worth 1,000 years of the united endeavor of all mankind to
Just
fulfill.
imagine if, just imagine if the United Nations think like that. Those jokers up there just protecting the interests of their cronies while they watch injustice gets perpetuated all over the planet and turn a blind eye to injustice. Just imagine if they thought like that.
That's true.
Just saying. I'm just saying. Yep. Because he didn't like we see the same theme. He doesn't just talk about the problems. We recognize what happened, but he presented solutions, which is what it sounded like. Restoration, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's
And
amazing. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for that. So if no one else has anything to add, we can look at 14. And it says when it comes to history, um, did Garvey avoid, how did he avoid pitfalls of living in the past? So the answer is he used history to establish a grievance, instill Black pride, and point at eventual race emancipation. And pretty much that's how we use history. Okay. So 15 says, as a historical figure, what kind of an impact did Garvey hope to have on past and future generation? On past and future generation. Anyone? If no one wants to guess, we could look at it. So it says Garvey often spoke in terms of future generation who would be inspired by his example, as well as past generation whose suffering would not be in vain. In one of the things that we were reading, he was talking about, how he was being cheered on by the ancestors, and he was saying, "Go on, Garvey, go on, Garvey." So he wants to inspire the ancestors to say, you didn't die in vain, you didn't suffer in vain. But at the same time, he wants the younger generation to hang on to something to propel them forward to better the race, of course. So no one else has anything to add to that. We can look at the next question, which says, how did Garvey played an important role in the day-to-day affairs? I'm sorry, how did history play an important role in the day-to-day affairs of the UNIA? Anyone? I think Brother Murray might have touched on it earlier, but if no one else has anything to add, we can just look at the answer. It says basically the race catechism used by the organization was largely an encapsulation of historical knowledge concerning the race. So it's utilized in the organization because, you know, Garvey is a historian. He likes history. He learned from history, but he doesn't fall into the pitfall of just lingering about history. So, what demand, number 17 says, what demand regarding history was made in the 1920 Declarations of Rights? Anyone?
That our Black children will be taught Black history to their advantage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So as early as in 1920, the Declaration of Rights had demanded that truthful Black history be taught in schools. Yes.
And there will be a discussion coming up soon, I guess on August 31st, concerning the declarations again. Brother President Hargrove.
Okay.
That was a question, actually. I don't know if he's still available or not.
Brother John, did you catch that? It's probably muted.
Oh, okay.
You're probably muted, Brother
Yes,
John.
yes, you're right, brother. Mario, August 31st, we will be celebrating International African Independence Day.
Okay.
It took me a while to get to this. It's hard to speak while I'm presenting on my phone.
Yes. No problem. Thank you, Brother John.
Will that discussion
Thank-
include the declarations as well?
It should. Well,
There's no official program yet. I don't see why it would not be a featured portion of the program.
Okay.
But I think the part of the intent is kind of, just an introduction of the divisions around the world and what's going on and, how we can continue to celebrate August 31st collectively.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Brother John. And we're on, what are we on? 17 or 16? Oh yeah, the race category. Oh yeah, so 17 says okay, we did that one. And so 18 ask, what are some businesses that were named after Black heroes? Anyone?
Phyllis Wheatley Hotel,
Yes.
Booker
that
T.
was
Washington
one.
University.
Yes, absolutely.
I will also say there was a Marcus Garvey House at the Universal Liberty University in Claremont, Virginia, as well, that we owned.
Okay.
And that school had formerly been known as the Smallwood Corey Institute, which named after John Jefferson Smallwood, which was the grandson of Nat Turner. So,
Okay.
Nat Turner family bequeathed to us, institution to continue to fight. And, it was on the James River, actually, but we were first sold into slavery. So Mr. Garvey used the same location where we were mentally enslaved to mentally liberate us, and that became our door of return, so to speak, the return spiritually, mentally, and otherwise back to Africa. So anyway, that's my
Wow.
little in that. But yeah, but
Awesome.
a number of the boats, etc., were named after the ships.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Anyone wanting to add any more? Or if not, we can take a look at a few that are on the list, but there are many more that are not on the list, some of which Brother Maria Mar mentioned. So we see the Black Star Line ship lines were named after Black heroes, as were the Phyllis Wheatley Hotel, Booker T. Washington University, both of those in Harlem, and many more, of course, that we didn't include that Brother Maria Mar touched on. And that is good. That's one of the things that Garvey felt was important. And he would, at the time when there were Black heroes, he would put them in cartoon form for the kids. Like, I mean, there's just something going on to educate the young ones and the older ones. And it was a beautiful thing. So, if no one else has anything to add, number 19 says to describe the ideal society that Garvey looked forward to. Anyone? I think Brother Miriam Mar touched on that a little bit. Yeah. If no one wants to take a guess, we could look at the answer. So it says Garvey looked forward to an ideal society which would learn from past mistakes. And then he took the view that great civilization in the past were destroyed by materialism and the submergence of human values. They put more value on materialism instead of humans. It's like now we spend billions of dollars on nuclear armaments, billions of dollars putting satellites up all over the place. And we know where the person who has them all up got their money from. And all this crazy stuff, and we have people on the planet starving. That's out of congruent. That's not aligned, out of alignment. And so we got some craziness going on. But go ahead, Brother Orman.
We
You wanted to add to that?
We also spend millions of dollars on hair, nails, sneakers, music, and a lot of other areas that we have to be accountable for, because that's a testimony to our level of consciousness and our level of willingness to produce the society that we say that we want.
Right. And the way I heard, Dr. Claude Anderson talk about a lot about how we can divert some money and in his books. But I also heard someone saying that even in Black America, we're not poor because he was saying if you look at the Black America, just America alone, not even Black all over the planet, but just in America alone, we have the equivalence in terms of our spending power, and of course, spending on new cars while we're living in apartments. You shouldn't have a Mercedes and living in an apartment, and all the money we spend on hair and all this stuff. But anyway, he was saying that the spending power of Black Americans would be equivalent to like the 13th largest country in the world. So it's not a spending power to scoff at. It's just that we have an unequal distribution in terms of emancipating ourselves and our community economically.
And
You know?
the greatest transfer of wealth happens on Sunday morning when our people
Exactly.
buy their way into heaven, and
Exactly.
and money is deposited in the bank on Monday morning, and other people use it to build their societies with, while
Right.
they buy up ours with our money. So we are
Exactly.
sometimes self-defeating in many areas.
Yes, we definitely need to be accountable for that. 100%. Yes, yes, yes. And yeah, so and then the next question says, how did Garvey see how did he see a chance for the Black man to be humanity's savior?
Mm.
First, we have to save ourselves, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's the first thing. We got to save ourselves. That's what they tell you on the plane. Make sure you put on your mask. Put on your mask first before you help anybody else. So yes, we can be. Yeah, but we have to save ourselves. But anyone else want to add something to that? If not, we can take a look at the answer or answers. Okay, so Garvey said that the Black man has the double experience of his own ancient civilization on the Nile, as well as the white man's in which he currently lives.
Mm-hmm.
And then it further says that the Black man could not only emancipate himself, but could perhaps save mankind in the process and salvage the bankrupt civilization of white Europe.
Yeah, that's our job.
That's it. Yeah, and I think there's something else too. I think there's something else, another piece added to that. Unless I think there's a little. Is it showing that that's the last page? I think there was a little piece, and it was along the lines. It was along the lines that let's see if I, well, what did I do? Oh yeah, let me see if I see it. Unless I left it off. Yeah, I think I left it off somehow. It was along the lines that we have the experience of the history, but we also have, I think I just read it, but we also have the experience of living in these parts. So the knowledge of being on both sides or something to that effect is what's gonna put us in a position to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my big screen when I was trying to look it up. So anyone has anything to add to that? Oh yeah, I think I actually highlighted it on the last page. Yeah, I did. It says that I'll read directly from the book. He says that um he says that the Black man could not only emancipate himself, but could perhaps save mankind in the process and salvage the the bankrupt civilization of white Europe. He said he could do this because the heart of the Negro is deep and holy. And he says, misdirected, it has been emotional and sentimental up to the present. But the recovery of the race in its sublimest thought will give it an urge, direct it toward an end, and will bestow great blessings upon mankind. That's like the very last paragraph in the history chapter. I knew I saw it somewhere.
What did he say about the urge?
So it says that he could do this because the heart of the Negro is deep and holy. Misdirected, it has been emotional and sentimental upon the present, but the recovery of the race in its sublimest thought, will give it an urge.
Oh, it's sublimest thought. Oh, that's the key word that I was mentioning.
And it'll direct it towards an end that will bestow great blessings upon mankind. So we're actually, I could see some truth in that. We just have to get our act together. Because there are crazy ones amongst us, but you know, I don't think we're as crazy as
no, we good. The sublimest thought is the word I picked up on in that particular. That means the deep thought when we reflect and bring out of ourselves that divinity that lives within us and return, which is returning to the knowledge of self and reconnecting with self. I would say is that sublimest thought, which is that root thought that is in urge for freedom, urge for justice, urge for equality, urge to return back to our former greatness. I would say might be the sublimest thought that Brother Marcus Garvey was speaking of. What do you think?
We're going back to African spirituality, returning to truth, justice, righteousness, and reciprocity.
Yes.
Mahat, the Mahat stuff that Brother Moriamar alluded to earlier.
Good, yeah. That sounds good.
Right, Brother Moriamar? Truth, justice, righteousness, and reciprocity.
Truth, justice, and
reciprocity. So we have the stuff. We have the stuff already that everybody took and fed back to us, their version, and we abandoned it for the version that they fed to us, and we're out of alignment because we don't know that they got their stuff from us, and we've abandoned our stuff. So we're in a messed up state, man.
Historically, we've been magnanimous. So as a people, we've been magnanimous. Historically, we were kind and humane, and we didn't have civilizations with great wars, millions of people, dying over ridiculous things. We were just a more peaceful people. So it was kind of in our nature, it's an innate, characteristic, the exercise fellow feeling and want for others what we want for ourselves. So kind of like when during the race riots, I think it was Walter Rodney. I'm thinking about Rodney King. I remember Sister Soldier making the point that you all are lucky that we only want justice and not revenge. Because it's our nature. If we wanted revenge, we would, undo this country as we've, built it. We put it together, we could take it apart.
Take it apart, exactly. 100%. 100%. It's crazy. And in some ways they would want that to continue doing what they're doing. And the thing is we assume that everybody was like us, so we extended hospitality and we got bamboozled. We got, we all know what we got, but yeah, we thought others were hospitable as us. So.
Well, justice could mean many things to many different people. Justice, when correctly applied, is what I think they fear, because it's not revenge, but it is,
Right.
so as you sow, so shall you reap.
Right.
What goes around comes around. All these different terms that we use,
Right.
and karma, and all these other terms. Justice is involved in all of that, and I think they know that too. And they
Right.
know that even though by nature they did what they did, they realize that sooner or later there will be a payback, which is what I would call justice. I don't have to call it revenge or any other kind of thing. We can
Right.
just say justice and be righteously in our right state of mind, and appropriating it to the proper place, because justice will mean that what is done has been done to others shall be done unto you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's what do you call it? Well, I guess
Reciprocity.
reciprocity. And if we practice the golden rule, we don't have to deal with reciprocity.
Well, see,
Right?
the big problem right now is that a lot of us will be getting a lot of that reciprocity too, because we haven't separated ourselves out from the ways of the beast. And
Yeah.
this is what's holding things sort of up until we reach a point whereby we separate ourselves out. And so that the Creator can distinguish us and then apply justice, because a lot of the people who still enslaved have not yet freed themselves up. So justice can't really be applied at this time, nor can our powers be restored at this time, because we are still not whole. We have to be made whole. And when we are whole, we will change everything.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Anyone else wants to add anything to that?
But you had mentioned the golden rule, which do to others you would have them do unto you. Unfortunately, the white man has another golden rule. He who has the gold, rule.
Has the rule.
Wow, that is true.
We gotta get on the same page.
Wow.
Yes, but that's the separator too, because that's the temptations that he used to keep us off balance, because that creates that material world.
But not only
And we're in trial now to find out who's who and what's what. That's what the separation of the wheat from the tare and all that's about. And this is the day of separation. This is a day of manifestation. And excuse me. And
go ahead.
we're being tried by the goal to see where our hearts stay. Gold can be in many different places. Gold can be that physical source, or our goal, GOAL, can be back to our divine self. And once we get back to our divine self, the goal, which is of a material manifestation, will mean nothing. Because back when we ruled, gold was just ornaments. It wasn't something that you kill over, murder over, sell your soul over, and things like that.
And that's why Mansa Musa gave away so much of it.
Right.
Because it wasn't like, it was unheard of killing people for that stuff. But not only that, even what Brother Mariam just said, here's the propaganda again. Their thing is not to operate by, they have a whole different thing about operating by the golden rule. And their thing is, he who has the gold rules. But when you really look at it, the African continent, how many gold mines do you have in the United States? We have the gold. So here we are again, mentally, we're just messed up. We're in mental slavery because we are the ones historically and even now that have the gold. But yet our currencies are devalued with These people have paper money with no kind of currency, no kind of resource to back their. It's all mixed up in a blender and it's all upside down. And then it's like not even just upside down, it's all mingled up. Like it doesn't make any sense.
It's confusing.
Yeah.
It's confusion. That's how they rule, in confusion. And we're using a language called English where words are interplayed. And even though we say gold, G-O-A-L, then there's G-O-L-D, you know, and there's a play there that that can be used if you don't correctly understand the roots of all these words that we use, because we're locked down in words. We think in words. Unfortunately, we think in the words of the people who had enslaved us. So quite naturally, we're going to be thinking in off base to begin with, because if we knew our native tongue, then we wouldn't be confused by many of the things that we are confused by today.
But right, so that's one of them. He who has the gold, if you just use the word gold, like what we know gold is that come out of the ground, he who has the gold wins. And then the other one is the strong will survive. But who is the strongest really? Is it them? When you look at it like not military strength, but physical strength. They're not the strongest. We have the gold. We are for the physically the strongest, but we're being subjected and ruled and bamboozled and enslaved and all the other stuff. So yeah, something is weird here.
Marcus Garvey said, "Up you mighty people, you can accomplish what you will. If you have the will, you can accomplish the goal, and get some gold, while you're at it."
Yes, absolutely.
So to speak, it's just a play on words. Words are like fun, you know. And when you see the language that we use in English, English is like you can just paint pictures with it. That's why it's good to know words, the language of the people who we now are locked down in their language and their mind. Because when you think with words, you create concepts, and our concepts are controlled by the words that we use. So we have to be careful how these words hit our minds and how they come out of our mouths, because they can be misinterpreted, they can be combined with other things, and they're symbolic. Words are symbolic, and you have to use words as symbols and understand words as symbols, because that way we can better understand our mental enslavement that we're in, because we're in mental enslavement here. And in order to free our African minds, we have to also understand things called words, because words shape your conceptions and things like that, and shaped your world too. And there's words of power.
The English is a language of spelling, and they've definitely cast spells on us with this language. You know, when you look at even some of the little things we were just looking at.
Right. Elijah Muhammad says it's the language of liars.
Yes.
Because it can be used all kinds, because people can use words and they be talking in parallels and parables and using them in different weights and forms and we wouldn't even understand what they're talking about, because they have other symbols that are attached to these words that is in secret societies, that are in different other places. So you have to be ever alert when you use words, because they create a picture and a mindset and a concept that other people embrace, or you can create your own world through the use of words and the correct understanding of words. But anyway.
Yes, and I know we're gonna wrap up because it's that time, but you just mentioned one word, secret society, and I was listening to something recently that says that secret society is not even secret. Secret society consists of our historical knowledge.
True.
So it's all like everything is so mixed up and fed back. It's crazy. But anyway.
But we lose it. See, that the reason why we don't understand, it's secret because we're using a different language. If we understood our true language, which is the root of our language, which has been altered also, we will get a clearer picture and a weight and a value of things that will give us a better understanding. But right now we have to understand everything through English. And that's a tremendous responsibility because it's not what you think it is. It's a form of spelling, you know, as you say, witchcraft or Minecraft or whatever you want to call it. And we have to be conscious of that in order for us to matter of fact, just to negotiate one another, because in our minds have been placed a lot of landmines. And that's the reason why when we get into conversation, that's why one of the reasons why we're disunited, because even though we get in a room, we start using a language in which in us are landmines that were placed during the slavery time when our minds were indoctrinated. And so we step on each other, easily step on each other's, especially when you don't love one another. We could say one thing that has a significance to another African that would cause an explosion. Boom, you stepped on a landmine. And next thing you know, we start out with a good conversation, trying to resolve issues, but somebody stepped on somebody's landmine. And then next thing you know, the conversation goes off and we end up in a dispute and we don't accomplish much. That's probably why we have the most disunified group, because of just a basic language that we can understand and apply to ourselves would help us tremendously, rather than trying to communicate in somebody else's language, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can see that. Yes. So it's been a great study, and I appreciate all the attendees and all the inputs from everyone.
Can I have one more little say? Can I have one more little say, please?
Yes, absolutely. And
Okay.
you know what? And you know what? You can close us out too if you want to, since you'll have the
I'm just
floor.
going to give you I'll just give you this information because you're doing such an excellent job.
Oh,
Okay,
thank
now
you,
I mentioned
thank you.
something about, we were talking about water being, air being turned into water. Now, where I heard that was at something called the Black Sustainability Summit. And there's an annual Black Sustainability Summit happening on April 11th through the 13th. It's online, and you'd have to register, but look it up on the bit.ly/BISUMMIT2024.
Can you put it on the chat, or?
I'll put it in the chat right now, and I'll do that.
And that's what was the date?
October the 11th through the 13th, 2024. It's very, very interesting. They deal with all aspects of sustainability. They have to deal with water. They have to deal with earth. They deal with survival. They deal with, it's 3 days. There's a virtual workshop.
Wow.
Then the second day is the sustainability report, immersed art exhibit. Third day offers and needs market working group, and then there are working groups. Mama Nabantu is in that organization also. She also does a presentation in there. If you're familiar with Mama Nabantu, yeah, I've heard them before, and I've attended.
Maybe we could get a flyer and send it out to us.
I have one here. Can you photocopy it for me?
You can send it to Brother John. You can send it to Brother John, and Brother John can send it to the rest of us.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll take a photograph of it and I'll pass it on to Brother John.
Yes, and then he could put it in our group thing.
Okay.
Is that okay, Brother John?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Well, I'm sure everyone is ready to close out. So, with Brother Ormond or Brother Mary-Omar, if you guys want, you can close us out.
I can take us out with a couple stanzas from the Tragedy of White Injustice, as we talked about it.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay. It's not conventional, but it's, it might be useful. Lion and I'm saying this in the voice of one of my mentors who used to be an African Nationalist Pioneer Movement and UNIA
Okay,
member.
that's good.
When he was on the street corners. But lying
Okay.
and cheating is the white man, lying and stealing is the white man's game. For rights of God, no man, he has no shame. A practice of his throughout the whole world, at all great thunderbolts he has hurled. He has stolen everywhere, land and sea. A buccaneer and pirate he must be, killing all as he roams from place to place, leaving disease, mongrel, moral disgrace. The world's history of him is replete, from his javelin bolt to his new built fleet. Host he has robbed and crushed below. A friend and neighbor he has made a foe. From our men and women he made the slave. Then boastingly he calls himself a brave. Cowardly he steals on his trusting prey, killing in the dark, then shouts he hooray. That's just the first two anyway. With that,
Wow.
I just, that's just a taste of
Yes.
tragedy and injustice.
Thank you. That was very good.
Yes,
That was
yes,
good.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you, brother.
Thank everybody, being on the call tonight. Again, a happy belated Garvey Day. Remember, Mr. Garvey is the reason for the season. His love,
Yes.
we love him because he first loved us and sacrificed for us and taught us to accomplish everything that we will. So I just want to thank you all for that. And
Yeah.
we close with a motto: one God,
Yes.
One
One
God,
God,
one aim,
one
one
aim,
aim,
one destiny.
one destiny.
one destiny.
Africa for the Africans.
Africa.
At home and
Africa
abroad.
for the Africans.
At home
Those
and abroad.
Those
at
are
home and abroad.
race first, family.
Race
Race
first.
first, family.